Hey everybody, TinyLeaf here. You've likely noticed within the last year I've made a real effort to stay off of social media, a decision that I feel more justified in by the day. That does not mean it escaped my attention though, that Danganronpa 4 is slated to drop in late April. Wait, it's not Danganronpa? Oh, thank God! The game is actually the 100-line Last Defense Academy, a name that I will no doubt be butchering throughout the rest of this video. It's a game that's co-directed by Kazutaka Kadaka, the creator of the Danganronpa franchise, and Kodaka Uchikoshi, who's the creator of the Zero Escape and the AI The Somnium Files series. Both of these gentlemen are accomplished game developers in their own right, and have developed some of my favorite games of all time. So yeah, this game is getting played when it drops. But I've gotta be completely honest with you guys. I'm not expecting this game to be very good. And I'm not, listen, I'm not trying to be a killjoy if you're psyched for this game. I just know that after all I've been through, it's healthier for me to keep my expectations in check by looking at how I've rated their past games and adjusting the bar accordingly. Because let me tell ya, I've had a little bit of a come to Jesus moment ever since I saw this trailer drop about how my relationship with these authors' works have changed over time. And given that it's been a fat minute since I talked about Kadaka's works, and I have only ever really talked about Uchikoshi's stuff in passing, let me give you the rundown of my general thoughts about each of their games that I have played. I know that there are a few others, but these are just the ones that I'm familiar with. Bearing all of this in mind, when I saw that Kadaka and Uchikoshi were teaming up to co-direct a game, it made me do a double take. As you can see, there have been a lot of times where I've enjoyed their past works, but I genuinely struggle to see how their differing styles can come together into a cohesive, high-quality final product. To me, Kadaka's the most talented at coming up with fun concepts. For all of the criticism I've leveled at his games over the years, I've always enjoyed the core ideas that he offers the player, even in projects of his that I dislike. But Kadaka is at his best when he's going absolutely balls to the wall anime mode and fucks around with the formula of what we've come to expect from Danganronpa, if not anime as a whole. The first example that comes to mind is Nagito being a twisted version of Makoto as the ultimate lucky student. And the second example is that the name of the apocalypse is the biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history, or just the tragedy. It's cliched as hell, and I absolutely love it. I don't need everything to make sense about Kadaka's stories to enjoy them, but it's easier to get behind his wacky ideas if it's clear that he's not taking himself too seriously. In contrast, Uchikoshi's talent lies in his ability to create grounded stories despite there being a clear sci-fi bent to them. When I sit down to play an Uchikoshi project where he brings his A game, I'm taking all of it seriously. He gives tragedy proper time to sink in, heartfelt moments feel authentic and earned, and reality-breaking twists are woven into the narrative in such a way where it feels like a very natural progression. I vividly remember playing through the last hour of 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors, and every single goddamn time that a twist was revealed, I immediately went, "Oh my god, that makes so much sense!" Dude, what the fuck? And this fucker made me eat my words on who I thought was the worst character in the game. Hats off, Uchikoshi. So, make no mistake, I respect both of these men as game developers and enjoy both of their works, just for different reasons and at different intensities. And that's exactly why I'm hesitant about getting a collaborative project from them. I want to revisit something I said a long time ago about Ultra Despair Girls. Roll the clip!
Danganronpa is a goofy parody of anime tropes with occasional moments of dark comedy thrown in, and sometimes straight-up darkness. The balance is sometimes off, and makes light of things in what I consider is poor taste, but it generally works out fine in the end. And the games have a good grasp of when to break the tension by inserting a little humor into it. Sometimes it's a sex joke, but a lot of the time it's at the expense of someone else or just at the absurdity of life, or something meta that just really is funny. There's enough variety in the jokes that they rarely grow stale. UDG veers more heavily towards the melodramatics, however. You're surrounded by piles of mutilated corpses. Everybody is angry and scared and upset, including your player characters, and including me. It doesn't feel so much like a dark comedy anymore as it just feels dark. Even the jokes have a certain level of edginess and sexual innuendo that just adds to the already uncomfortable atmosphere. It's such a vastly different tone compared to the other games that it comes across as ill-fitting.
Back when I first said this, Renko did not exist, and Kadaka's most recent work that I had played was Killing Harmony. So at the time, I was able to write off Ultra Despair Girls as just a general misstep in the Danganronpa franchise. I didn't stop to actually think about it as Kadaka's writing style. But Renko and the announcement of 100-line defense forced me to reevaluate that idea, and now's the time that I'm going to revise it. I'll not say that Kadaka should never dabble in serious story scenes, or that he has never done so effectively, because he's shown that he's more than capable of it. But I've come around to realizing that these moments work better when they stand in stark contrast to the general tone of the story. The Danganronpa's game's general vibe is that it's a self-aware parody of anime, and that makes it much easier to roll with the punches when something feels overly cliche or a little forced or fanservice-y. Would I prefer it if it was more natural and organic and less fanservice-y? Probably, but I've just come to accept that these are all parts of the anime style in general, for better and for worse. So when these moments feel forced, it's a minor annoyance and something I roll my eyes at, but I'm usually pretty chill with it. That makes the genuine moments hit harder because then it feels like a nice surprise. Renko, in contrast, reads to me as a more straightforward attempt at an anime detective story as opposed to a comedic parody. So I'm more critical of the character writing and plot development in a way that I wouldn't be for Danganronpa, because it's not Danganronpa and I'm going to hold it to a different set of expectations. Corny interactions, surface-level gimmicky characters, weird fan service moments, and nonsensical master plans no longer feel like an affectionate nod to anime. They feel like poor writing choices or out-of-place writing choices in the world of Renko. One of the best examples I can think of to illustrate this is the pink blood. In Danganronpa, the pink blood is a stylistic choice. We never question why it's pink. It's never really drawn to our attention. Blood is just pink because why not? In Renko, pink blood, as far as I can remember, is present from the beginning, and it's never really pointed out to us until it's suddenly revealed to be the linchpin in discovering the secrets of Kanai Ward. There's nothing in the plot indicating that we should suspect pink blood as being something out of the ordinary until it's suddenly convenient for Coco Head to say, "Yeah, I was wondering why blood is pink here."
Hello, TinyLeaf from the future here. So while I was editing this video, I started thinking again, and I was like, wasn't there blood in the very first chapter on the train? And I decided while I was editing to pause and look at someone else's playthrough because the internet is wonderful. And I had actually misremembered it. The blood that I was remembering was actually just a weird pattern on the train. It's whatever. I did remember thinking it was blood and actually fighting with Foss. It was like, no, there was red blood in the beginning. No, it wasn't. I just misremembered things. The first time that we actually see blood in the game is in Kanai Ward, where the body that we see is actually like one of the homunculus or whatever it's fucking called. And this is, I'm going to put some screenshots up here showing what Coco Head says about the body when he sees it and what he says about the blood. Now, in retrospect, you can easily interpret that as him referring to the blood looking fake. However, I don't think that is how a normal person would react to seeing hot pink blood. It's not even really discussed. If there's a part later in the chapter or like in chapter 2 or fucking whatever that contradicts this, fucking feel free to let me know in the comments. But this is the first instance where we see the hot pink blood, Coco Head sees the hot pink blood, and this is all that he has to say about it. That's like Uchikoshi levels of obfuscation. I don't think it's good.
It feels forced and a little too reliant on people's prior experience with Danganronpa to feel like a smart narrative inclusion. And going a little bit off script here, I am aware that probably most people who've played Rank Code have played Danganronpa, and so they would just naturally assume that pink blood is, a stylistic choice. I just feel like that's very lazy, and I didn't really like that choice. In the hands of a different writer, maybe all of this could work in a more serious story. But Kadaka's writing style in particular feels more suitable for a self-aware franchise like Danganronpa, and less for a serious detective visual novel. As for Uchikoshi, I'll be perfectly blunt here. This guy does not know when to put the pen down. When he's made a standalone story, Uchikoshi is great. He's able to handle genuine drama, develop a charming cast, keep a steady pace, reveal surprising yet logical plot twists, and even sneak a raunchy anime moment in there a couple of times. Although never at the frequency Kadaka does. And I don't know what happens to him when he's given the green light to make a sequel, but Uchikoshi sequels fall off so frequently that it feels like Newton's secret fourth law of motion. It seems to happen in a very predictable pattern. Uchikoshi's first games are developed as standalone games, with one or two solid, shocking twists and a definite resolution. So in order to make a sequel, Uchikoshi has to not only unend the story, but come up with a whole new twist that's bigger and more of a mindfuck than the first one. And as a result, one of four things happen. 1. The sci-fi logic gets overcomplicated to the point that it gets difficult to understand what's happening. 2. The scope of the story gets so big that it no longer feels like it's connected to the stakes of the original entry. 3. The happy ending of the previous game ends up being rendered pointless. And 4. All three at the same time. And since I have your attention now... Hello, Uchikoshi! Hi, I'm a big fan despite the way that I look. And since I know that you're watching and that you understand your stories better than anybody on the planet, allegedly, I have some questions for you about a couple of the plot decisions in your sequels. I've been sitting on them for like 2 years at this point. I really need some explanations. First of all, Uchikoshi, you're really great at coming up with family dynamics. It's one of the things that I think you're the best at. I loved the fact that you made Mizuki's biological family actually abusive and neglectful pieces of shit. And I loved that you gave her a found/adoptive family that genuinely cared about her well-being even if they were unconventional. I really liked that. So please explain to me, Uchikoshi, why did you decide to retcon that by having Mizuki being adopted out of a lab facility by a couple of parents that did not want her? Why did you make that decision? And then also, why did you decide to take away her second adoptive father figure? Why did you take him away from her for another 6 years? Mizuki has suffered enough! Second question, Uchikoshi. So, 999 was originally a story about saving the life of a little girl by creating a stable time loop where she is able to get rescued. That is a very heady concept, and I think you did a pretty damn good job of actually making that somewhat digestible. And I think the reason that it worked was because you kept it contained to one singular instance, one singular event, and you had it just focus only on saving the life of a little girl. I think that was really good of you. So where did you come up with the idea to make Virtue's Last Reward and Zero Time Dilemma about saving the world from a virus that will cause the entire human race to go extinct? And that the way that they solve it is by body hopping between different consciousnesses across time and space? You're making the FNAF series look like it's well constructed. And one last, Uchikoshi, before I let you go, I promise, this is an important one. You remember how in the first AI game that you had one of Iris's delusions, you know, the delusions that she got because she has a fatal brain tumor that her mother literally cannot afford to fix. And in those delusions that Nizelaz was trying to kill her and take over the world, but it's a delusion and Nizelaz isn't real, or it is real, but it's just not a very popular sect. I need to replay that game. It's very good. So I don't remember those details, but I do remember that Nizelaz is meant to be, like, not serious. It's a joke, right? You remember that too? Okay. So then why did you decide to make Nizelaz the main villains of the second game? I apologize if I sound like I'm being overly critical of these two developers' works. I'm not. I'm only ever this critical about stuff that I actually care about. And I'm critical because they've produced fun games before, and the last games I've played from them, I've not really enjoyed in a very sincere way. I'm not the same person I was when I first fell in love with these games. Shocker. I've played so many more games since then, and the way that I engage with media in general has changed. That's not a bad thing. I actually feel like I'm better able to explain what makes me enjoy a project and recognize when something is good, but not for me. However, it's that perspective I have now that makes me skeptical about 100 line defense, I'm sorry. Although this game is collaborative, I do not know for sure how much influence each man has on the story. Most people are perceiving this as a primarily Kodaka-led project because of the art style, the premise, the Masafumi Takada of it all, and I find myself agreeing with that assumption. But I sincerely hope that Uchikoshi has more of a hand in the narrative because I have more confidence that he'll deliver something entertaining even if it isn't good. Even while in the trenches of Zero Time Dilemma and Alien Sex Pods, I was constantly being surprised by the plot twists and laughing my ass off at some of the bespoke decisions. See the Alien Sex Pod. Nirvana Initiative is also hilarious if you pretend that this is an alternate timeline that has no bearing on the events of the first game, which, canonically, isn't impossible. Would a good Kadaka game be better than a bad Uchikoshi game? Absolutely. But a bad Kadaka game is not just a bad game. It's a boring game. A boring game that has more sexual harassment in one chapter than Uchikoshi has in his entire discography. Kadaka is saying that this is going to be his final project. And if that ends up being true, I want to be able to say he went out with a bang. And I would love it if this game ends up getting more people to play Uchikoshi's works, because he does not get the attention that I think he deserves. The best case scenario for me at this point is that the story combines the wackiness of Kadaka's works and the sincerity of Uchikoshi's. But even if I don't get that, I really hope that this game is fun. Or at least that it's so universally loved or hated that I don't feel like I'm shaking a hornet's nest when I talk about it. But anyways, that's going to be it for today. I leave you with the drinking game I came up with for 100 line defense and the disclaimer to please drink responsibly. And until we meet again, go outside, touch some grass, and take it easy. This is TinyLeaf, signing off.